One thing that I found really funny about the show that was that the first time, and I already brought this up a little bit, but the idea that we're seeing for the first time how important parents are, like parenting is, and how like the question of like nature versus nurture is coming up. Where like, well, how are these people existing? Like, what led them to this place? And we weren't doing it on purpose, and we were just like desperate for storylines. But the idea of starting to see backstory and to start to see it and understand how these characters got to that.
No, we were absolutely. I mean, to what extent I'm not sure, but I mean, in my memory, we were doing that on purpose. We were very deliberately, showing what could have been, had they been raised by Bruce Mathis versus being raised by Frank Reynolds. It's really fun to watch that those interactions with them, like really trying to kind of fit in with him at first, and then they go to the hospital. They just can't help themselves. Yeah, she's stealing medication. We can't help but blab about which kids are going to probably die, and should we say something or not? And then all of a sudden we're like, hey, we're too far gone, and we can't even. We're like, these kids are dying, and we're like, it's complaining about hospital food and the fact that it's too cold in this room, and can we crank the heat up? Like,
Yeah, but in the end, what's great is that if you're watching the show at that point, it's because you get what we're doing and you're enjoying the characters. So that when you and Dee realize that, like, oh, you know who never made us feel bad about like these kinds of conversations? Dad. You're actually happy for them because you're like, oh, that brings them back to the characters that we love.
Right.
And we love them for how repulsive they are. Yeah. Because we understand what the show is. But that's an interesting phenomenon, that you're rooting for them. You're not rooting for the good guy in the story. Yeah. Right? Like, do you remember the whole thing with Breaking Bad and how like there was this huge backlash against Skyler?
Oh yeah, yeah, right.
People started the character of Skyler.
People were disliking her. Like,
yes, no, she was the. Do you remember the show? So she was the mother and wife. In the show, and she was essentially the moral compass for like a while. Right, and people like actively hated her to the point where the actor was getting was getting like publicly like getting bullshit from people, and it was because the audience was like, oh no, we know that Walter is like a sociopath who's turning into a psychopath or whatever. And we're on board for that. That's the show. That's the promise of the show. So anybody who's like a good guy who's taking us away from who that character is like pushing us further away from the promise of the show. Right. I don't know. I think that's an interesting phenomenon. Yeah.
Well, is it just as simple as, you're telling a story, you have a character, protagonist, right? They have a want. They have a driving want, whether that's a good want or a bad want. They have a want. There's something relatable in that to everyone. And then the person who is obstructing them is annoying to the audience, just the way that a person obstructing you from your want is annoying. Is it maybe just that?
Yeah, well, I also think there's something interesting about empathy that's not necessarily like intellectual. Like if you...
Wait, explain empathy to Glenn. Just sort of break it down, like what the feelings are, and let's.
Okay, so for most normal humans,
I've heard the word. I mean, I've heard the word. That's a feeling.
Yeah. Yes.